Beyond Light is finally here, and that means that there is a bazillion guns for us to find. I've already managed to snag a few, and I wanted to take a minute to look at a brand new adaptive pulse rifle called Hailing Confusion. This is just a quick look at the gun itself. I don't actually have enough information to really do a legit god roll review on it, but we can take a look at the armory and we'll get a lot of data that'll help us determine what this gun could potentially be capable of in the near future. There's a real decent perk pool for the gun as well. Some of these perks could really boost it up, and then there are others that could definitely drag it down, but I digress. To kick things off, I wanted to take a look at the roll that I specifically got before anything else. Chambered Compensator, Ricochet Rounds, Zen Moment, and Unrelenting. For a base drop, this isn't really all that bad in reality. Chambered helps regulate gun stability while removing a bit of handling at the same time, but the decrease is never really enough to be noticed. This is an extremely stable gun, so far. Ricochet Rounds is also a good drop for range. Confusion can allegedly cap at a 61 in range, though that's from my limited knowledge of it as of right now. The second perk tree could maybe potentially raise that. I'm not 100% certain yet. Lastly, we're looking at Zen Moment and Unrelenting, which is an interesting perk set to say the least. Not exactly the greatest one in the entire world, but it's also not really all that bad. It allows for health regen with extra stability, so this iteration is more of a defensive role than anything else. The proc rate on Unrelenting is still kind of a little wonky. I wouldn't actually recommend farming for it, but for right now, it's still a nice thing to have when it works. As for base stats, it allegedly maxes at a 61 in range with full bore and a variety of tier 2 perks. Stability caps at 66 and handling hits 60 with a fluted barrel. Again, this is based off of me having the gun in my hands for 6 seconds, so I'll have a more in-depth review within the next few days. So right off the get-go, we've got a rifle that doesn't really excel at all that much, but it also isn't really all that bad at anything, realistically. There are ways that we could push the stats higher, but so far, there isn't really anything to call for an alarm here. Kinda like a jack of all trades. The gun handles well, it's got a decent mag size for its RPM, this roll specifically sitting at a 36 without the backup mag on it, and while it doesn't have the fastest sights I've ever seen, it's a weapon meant for range, so quick sights are more of a luxury than anything else when you take that into account. I'm more impressed by its recoil control, because the stat charts claim that this gun can be a bit of a chore to try and control depending on the tier 1 or 2 rolls that you get, but I actually haven't had any real issues with it as of right now. It feels extremely similar to Bygones, likely due to the fact that they're both adaptive. This could in theory be a good stand-in for Bygones and the Crucible, if that's something that you're into. Honestly, I'm not. I hate PvP, so I'm not going to try and test that. Now, lastly, before we wrap this up, we're going to take a look at the perk pool because there's some pretty decent ones that are here. Tier 2 can drop for Extended Mag, Appended Mag, Light Mag, or Alloy Mag, so there are plenty of magazine buffs here. We're also looking at armor-piercing rounds and high cal as well. Both of those are great for a range build. Flared Magwell is there for stability and reload speed, so if that's your thing, then you're in luck. In Tier 3, we've got Slideways, and honestly, I just don't see that working on pulse rifles. I never really have, but it is indeed there for anybody who's got a hard-on for it for whatever reason. Outlaw is present, and without a doubt, one of the best go-to perks, at least in my mind. Firmly Planted and Pulse Monitor are there as well, but I'm going to pass on both of those. They're just not really my thing. And lastly, we have Zen Moment, which is just all around a balanced perk for what it is. In Tier 4, we're looking at Demolitionist, Elemental Capacitor, Unrelenting, Full Auto Trigger, and then Quick Draw. Most of those are decent, some of them are kind of just meh, but it's not so bad. Now, before I close this out though, we gotta talk about these two new perks that can drop together on this gun. Surplus in Tier 3 and Wellspring in Tier 4, because these things are absolutely awesome. Surplus increases multiple stats based on how many fully charged abilities you currently have, handling, reload speed, and stability to be specific, meaning that it provides a passive buff based on how you're playing. Stat builds around this perk specifically could be extremely interesting and creative in the coming months as we watch the rest of the community learn how to use it. It can be paired with its sister perk, Wellspring, which is another monster entirely. Wellspring acts like a breach resonator. Kills with the weapon carrying this perk will return energy to all of your abilities, but that energy is divided and spread out among your abilities that are still on cooldown. If you're completely empty, a kill is going to restore a small amount of energy to all 3 abilities. On the flip side, if you've got a grenade ready but nothing else, the energy will be split down the middle between your melee and your class ability. And of course, if all of your abilities are charged except for one, then whatever ability that is on cooldown is going to get all of that energy. These are both very interesting perks, definitely ones that can work together and synergize well with one another. I'm excited to get a collection of this gun and really start testing out what is best and what's just straight bad. I'm currently glued to my monitor for the next 5 days or whatever, so you'll be seeing plenty more small videos as the week progresses. There will be a large project releasing this weekend as well, so stay sweet, and I will likely see you guys again in like 2 or 3 hours.